gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate your continued involvement in our experiment called the Paranormal Portal. And I'm not alone. I got my good friend and co-host, my right-hand man, the Hitman, the bearded one.
Oh boy!
The reason that I fly every Wednesday and Saturday.
Whatever.
Mr. Don Longbeard, welcome to the show, brother.
I guess that's me. How are we doing today?
I think we're doing great because the beauty of today is we've got guests, Don.
We've got guests.
We've got company.
Did we clean first?
I did. I did.
All right.
I even dragged a vacuum around the studio.
Yeah,
Couldn't you tell?
Plunged the toilet, cleaned it real nicely. You know.
Absolutely.
Got the roof sack up there on the wall.
Yeah, we got our bottle opener handy, so we're good in case we want to hoist a cold one later. Thank you, Mr. Gary. Beautiful. But we, of course, have got a Yowie night here tonight on the Paranormal Portal. We are welcoming tonight's two guests. Two.
I thought you said a guest.
Two for the price of one, Don.
Wow.
Yep. They multiply in Australia.
Like marsupials.
One of them might have a pouch. I'm not sure how they snuck in, but all right, we're going to welcome to the show tonight's guests, Mr. Gary Lynn and Mr. Buck Buckingham. Welcome to the show, guys. Thanks for coming on.
Hello. How are you guys?
Well, we're doing great. Thank you guys for coming on. First, for those of you looking on your screen, Buck is on the left and Gary's on the right. Just so you know who's who. But these are the superstars of the Australian Yowie research. I got to get my mouth to open a little better first before I start talking. But thanks for coming on, guys. It's really exciting stuff that you guys have been doing over there. We'll get into some of the really groundbreaking stuff that you've been able to accomplish lately, which is really, really exciting. Some amazing evidence that I think is just mind-numbingly great. But I got to ask you guys, and I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe we'll start with Gary, but I want to talk a little bit about Yowie research and how did you get involved with that?
Yeah, for sure, mate. So, I mean, I've been involved with the Australian Yowie research for 2 years now. Mm-hmm. However, I've been interested and involved myself in the subject for probably at least 5 to 7 years. Previous to that, I've always been involved with ghosts, UFOs, all the paranormal stuff like that. However, since being involved with Dean and Buck, Jacob and Shannon and that, things really ramped up, and I did not expect to see myself sitting here at this point in time talking to you guys. It's really exploded. I love it. It's yeah, it's great. Like, we get out there, we get in the bush, and it just furthers our research, furthers our involvement, and we just love getting out there and being actually actively involved in the subject.
Yeah. How about you, Buck?
Yeah, I've been, I guess like everybody gets focused in on this kind of niche topic. due to some experience and some involvement, and you don't have answers. When I was young, I had an encounter and a sighting, but I didn't have anything to hang it on until it was 2005 when I stumbled on Dean Harrison's Australian Yowie Research website. And from there, things just grew. I went out with Dean a couple of times and more times, and met other people that are in the field. But more recently, since getting involved with Gary and the rest of the crew, things have just, like he said, have ramped up, and it's been better going out on these latest expeditions, because sometimes you go out on these things and you get nothing, but now we're continually getting a result or some results. We're learning something. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't for Dean cracking the whip and pushing us forward, a lot of stuff wouldn't happen. But he's a quiet, hard taskmaster hiding in the back. Hi, Dean, don't take me. So we've had experiences that have taken us to where we are now. And I didn't expect to be here either, but I'm really glad Gary is.
Mate, come on. What do you expect?
It's Gary, the finderer. He finds himself on Paranormal Portal.
There you go. And now I've watched the videos that are on Australia Yowie Research YouTube channel, and some of the places you guys go are just really hairy. I've got to hand it to you guys, because you're not just going to campgrounds and doing the easy route. You guys are really out there cutting trails, and I watched one where you guys are like wading in the water, and it's really pretty impressive, like the effort you guys are putting into this.
Yeah, that'd be the expedition where I lost my wedding ring, actually.
Oh,
luckily the wife doesn't have any actual attachments to the ring as opposed to the actual marriage itself. But I mean, we actually do get out there. There are some trails that do actually go through the bush, and they do go quite deep, so that is handy. But yes, you can find things on the trails, but for the most part, if you actually detour off and go bush, that's when the action happens. Unfortunately, we can't just recline back and sit in a chair and wait for them to come to us. You actually have to go find them, track them, go into their habitats. Otherwise, we may as well just sit at home and be another armchair researcher.
Yeah, absolutely. But Buck, how do you like all that roughnecking out there?
I love it. I was born in Africa, so I've been born in the bush, and I lived in this very tiny mobile unit called Camp Vincer. So at night I could hear lions roar. I mean, I don't hear lions roar out there. I'm waiting for something to roar at me, not just Dean, but I just want something to yell at me, because so far my encounters have been quiet and quite peaceful and serene. But I love the bush. I can't get enough of it. I don't care about
what he's saying is he wants something other than Gary to yell at him at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Gary, but you got a mean roar. Looks like you could smack the smirk off of Yowie. So.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was when Gary came up the track that they scarpered. So I don't know what it was about him. They said, he's a unit we don't want to tangle with.
Well, I really do respect what you guys are doing, because I think it's phenomenal. First of all, to all the efforts to document and to put the Yowie on the map. I mean, there's no doubt that AYR is leading the charge in Australia as far as the efforts and the amount of expeditions and recording that you guys do, and talking to experiencers. And when you guys are picking a place, Buck, maybe you want to answer this first, and then Gary, or both of you, but do eyewitness reports play into where you go, or do you guys pick spots based upon current research or ongoing research?
Well, that's right. When I first started and I wanted to do something by myself, I went out to Tablelands Road. I was just someone on the forum engaging a little, but I thought I wanted to do something. So I found a sighting that intrigued me, and I went out to Wentworth Falls to Tablelands Road. And, you know, that was exciting, but it's way after the fact. And more recently with Gary and Dean's trekking into the bush, they've been able to get more active sites, so more signs of activity, which just narrows the odds a bit. And, you know, they did all the hard yards before I came to Stickland. I just wandered up like a rock star, quite thankfully, because I have done the hard yards before.
Sure.
And, yeah, it was great. The intuition and the hard work paid off.
Your hard yards are hilarious when you're taking care of yourself in the bush, in the middle of the bush, going for number 2, and there's a red-bellied black, which is in the top 10 most venomous snakes in the world. And Buck's like, too bad, I don't care. It's just going to have to deal with it. I've got to go.
Yeah, he has to watch out for the brown snake, you know.
It's a battle of the snakes. I wonder which one won. Yeesh.
That snake was very sick, let me tell you.
Well, they don't chew their food, so.
I mean, to answer your question, yes, like witness accounts do play a large part in our research as well. Depending on the location of where the person witnessed a being or had an encounter or a sighting or whatever. As you know, Australia is just as big as North America.
Yeah.
And being that we are self-funded, you know, we'll go to work, so we can then put money into our vehicles for fuel and food and all that kind of stuff and get to these locations. So sometimes we can't, depending on the location, we can't get there. Sometimes we'll have a witness that will say, look, you guys need to come down here right now. There's something going on right here. There's something off the back of my property right now. It was looking through the back door of the house last night. But the problem is they're 15 hours away.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So it's a little bit hard to just, yeah, cool, we'll be there Friday night. So because it is self-funded, admittedly we do try to stay within our limits, within, say, a 500k range. There are interests for us to go further, but it's about time and money, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's gotta take a lot, and like, you know, I understand that you guys also have you make a living outside of this, but with all of the effort that you guys throw into this, it's really admirable. I mean, not everybody can do it, and it's great that you guys are out there doing it, because I think that the substantiation of this species will be an incredibly profound event for all of us, you know, because if you guys manage to, with beyond a shadow of a doubt, prove that the Yowies are there,
Right.
the Bigfoot argument becomes so much stronger because, hey, look, they found them there. We have reports of them here. So I mean, it's really a global effort, and likewise, you know, if someone over in the States here is able to substantiate the Bigfoot, or up in Canada or wherever else, that strengthens the global discussion. Because it's no longer flights of fancy, as some people would dismiss it as. It becomes powerful, and, you know, proving a species is there, I think, is incredibly profound.
Well,
That's exactly right.
You touched on the subject
Mark,
there.
I'm talking, mate. Relax.
Sorry.
I'm talking.
Okay, he's roaring. He's roaring again.
You go, mate. You're right.
All right. No, you're right. Substantiating a species goes through a whole list of things that needs to happen. And now people have talked about this phenomena for hundreds of years, and pre-white settlement history. Every Indigenous tribe in Australia knew about the hairy man, and we're very, very late to the party in terms of trying to document it. And you look at more recent discoveries like the billy ape, which is in early 2000s. That's a 6-foot chimp that has been proven to be in existence, but until someone captured on photo, we weren't willing to accept it. Now, this is harder for us, like Gary and I and Dean and Shannon and Jacob, we're all traipsing around the bush to grab some type of evidence that will satisfy the general population. And, you know, sometimes you get a footprint, which is great for us, but it doesn't satisfy the pub test, you know, so we have to keep pushing further.
Yeah, I would agree. What are your thoughts on that, Gary?
My Buck is exactly right. And the thing is, well, as you guys know, because unfortunately this is a worldwide issue, a large majority, large percentage of the population, it's not that they're not open to the true side of life or the real side of life. It's they don't want to be open to it. So as you guys know, we obviously see this with the UFO community, the ghost community, all those paranormal aspects, that people are like, oh, there's ETs coming down. Like, what? No, that's a load of crap. But the thing is, like, with a morning show here in Australia, which I won't go into them because they're quite annoying, but generally these kind of morning shows, they will make fun of these topics and have a laugh. And it wasn't until the Pentagon come in and released these files on these topics,
Yes.
then all of a sudden these morning shows can't make a joke about it. So I think once we can sway the majority to open their minds, no, they don't have to believe it. Mm-hmm. As Dean says, it's not up to us to prove it to you.
Yeah.
But once we can hopefully get the majority to open their minds up to these subjects, all of them included, then I think we'll finally start to see some actual positive moving forward. As Buck said, you know, we go deep bush, hours and hours of time, literally making our way through the bush to try and find evidence and to try and prove these facts. Yes, we get footprints. Yes, we get knuckle prints. Yes, we get tree breaks and all the stuff that you guys find over there as well. Mm-hmm. And we can tell 1,000 people, but if these 1,000 people aren't going to be open to the possibility, then we're just banging our heads on a brick wall. Right. However, with these latest thermal images that Buck captured, which are amazing, as you know, mm-hmm. then that's a massive step forward for us and for you guys and for the cryptid paranormal group in general.
Yeah.
So I think once we can sway that majority to at least just be open to the possibility that we aren't here on this planet alone, I think then we can start to progress in more positive manner.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
And AYR's been presenting evidence of an existence of an unknown creature out there for decades, largely due to Dean and his tireless efforts in coordinating teams of people that come and go over the years. And we even have our own doubts sometimes when we have stuff we know what's happened, but we want to share it. Like more recently, like I got that image and footage, but that's not before a couple of other things that happened. We were out in Diagla Range, out at Bellwood Grove, and Dean, as his generous Dean, he's given us the best thermal unit. And Gary and I are down by a billabong taking the most beautiful pictures of water. That's all that's happening. And we get a radio call going, guys, where are you? I need the thermal unit. And he had an opportunity there that slipped away because he had bought a FLIR in 2010 at great cost to himself, and it's now aging. It was still working, sure. But when he was trying to hit record, it did not record. It only got two very grainy, but kind of distinct snaps of these giant eyes peering behind this tree. The other thing that people have forgotten too is that the new guide that we were using that night, Gary has also captured thermal images of two beings at a much further distance than I have. So there's been a progression to try and get this type of science backing up some of the evidence that we need to, present a case to people. Don't ignore this.
Yeah, I agree. What are your thoughts, Tom?
Oh, it's just amazing, because we've been looking at, people have been gathering this evidence and people have been bringing this evidence to the forefront for, decades, as we've saying, and when somebody gets really excellent quality, the best that we've seen. It's really got to be pushed. It's got to be pushed out there. Everybody has to see it. And as Gary said, it'll be a boon to the community in general, and people will start opening their eyes. I'm just parroting everything that's been said, but you got to just, you guys got that great thermal imaging. You guys, and before with the stuff that Dean's gotten before, it's like people, they're just either not ready or they're just ignorant to a point, but, and that's why we're here, to help you guys get that out and get people actually looking at it and considering the ideas that we're not alone, whether it be terrestrial or extraterrestrial, it's all there.
I'd like to touch on that phrase you just said then, which is you're not ready. When this happens in your life, no one's ready.
No one's ready.
Like, I had an experience. I wasn't ready. I didn't know this was going to happen. The same with Dean, the same with Gary. And there are plenty of people out there, good, honest, hardworking people that aren't given to flights of fancy, that will be suddenly in a situation where all the perceptions are being challenged. They're not ready for this experience, but suddenly they have to accept there's an 8-foot hairy hominid in North America staring at them, or in Australia staring at them, or in Russia staring at them. And these people aren't ready. So it's also one of the reasons that Gary, Dean and I do this, is to help people realize that they're not alone, that you saw what you saw. And don't let people change your mind.
As much as we can, anyway. I mean, look, we've had some people that we've spoken to where, in a specific location, where this, with my job, it takes me to lots of different properties and places of business, and depending on the location, if they back on the bush, they're back on the mountains and that kind of stuff, I don't care what people think. I'll just ask a question. Do you see anything weird, hear anything weird, all those kind of questions? And this one guy said, every now and again, there's these big, hairy sort of people come out of the bush and they throw rocks at me, and I get the gun out and I pop a few shots over their heads, and they scream at me, and they throw sticks and rocks, and they come down to the house, and and down the end of this road there used to be an old dairy farm, and he even told me that this old farmer down there, when the cows would come into calving season and a calf would drop out, this big hairy man would run out of the bush, grab the newborn calf with the placenta and all over the shoulder, run back into the bush with the dairy farm popping shots off over the top of this thing's head. So everything this guy says correlates to everything that people hear, people over there say. It's what they do. It's reported over and over and over and over. And then I got this guy's phone number. I said, "Can I pass your details on to Dean?" Yeah, go for it. Dean gives him a call, and the disappointing part about this was this location is very, very close to where we think the beings that we captured on thermal, again, Buck's and mine, which were actually on the same ridge line. We think that these beings actually live in this area, which is not far from where these properties are. So the problem is we have no actual reports from this area. So Dean was super excited to actually get this guy on the phone, have an interview with him. It was a 20-minute interview. This guy told Dean everything he told me. And he goes, "Oh, no, Yowies don't exist. They're just homeless people living in the bush." Like, yeah, but
they're hairy.
Everything you've said correlates to thousands and thousands of witness reports in Australia, in northern US, other parts of the world as well. No, you're full of crap. Yowies don't exist. Go away.
Oh my God.
And it was so. Yes, people are ready to some extent, but again, like you said as well, the ignorance or the arrogance, really, they either don't want to believe it, or it's that, or these kind of aspects are that far outside of their mind that they just can't fathom anything outside their lounge room, because what they can see in front of them is real. The possibility of anything else is not real.
Yeah.
So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you can have an encounter having this big, hairy, homeless person in the bush throwing sticks and stones at you and screaming at you. But if your mile's not open, then to that extent, then it's never going to be open. Either that or it's just pure denial.
Right. I think it's people cling desperately to their paradigm. It's like anything threatening that threatens their whole worldview, and so they defend it with all the vigor of their being, because to challenge that challenges everything they know, that security that they experience. So they fight back hard as they can. It's like I was just the other day covering a UFO report, and it's an old one. It had to do with the Japanese Airlines incident around Alaska, but the pilot saw this huge craft and these other craft, and there was I think it was Skeptical Inquiry or another magazine like that. Their rebuttal to that was, no, the pilots were confused. They just saw light refracted from ice crystals in the clouds.
Yeah. I love it when people try to explain what those people saw and they have no idea because they have no firsthand. How do you do that? How does that work?
Yeah, it's like these pilots, I'm sure, recognize what they're seeing, and they recognize that it's not what should be there. And it's the same, I think, in the the Bigfoot field with any skeptics and the Yowie field. I do want to ask you guys, how do you know of, or do you believe there are any significant differences between the Australian Yowie and the Bigfoot / Sasquatch / skunk ape of America and North America?
Not much. Not much by the sounds of it.
Okay.
Very similar, I'd say.
We have quite a few aggressive encounters. They might be a bit meaner. Maybe we got more ticks and leeches. I don't know. But the rock throwing is something that always interests me. Like, I desperately want to be hit by a rock. That would be great. I'd love it. Fuck, I've been chosen. So I'm not sure how much rock throwing you get over there, but we get a fair bit of rock throwing, and some of these rocks are very big. And as Gary has pointed out to people being curious about this, they're saying, if they don't want you there, they'll start doing a few things to escort you off the property.
Yeah.
And it'll usually culminate with bigger and bigger rocks and a lot of stomping. But I want a rock thrown at me, and not by Dean.
Yeah, we actually had a witness come forward to us a couple of months ago now, where she was on a spiritual retreat with her family, her husband and her daughter. And sometime during the 3-4 days they were there, they decided to go for a walk along one of the trails. Now, this trail is called Yowie Trail.
Oh.
So surely that rings a bell somewhere around. So she and her family go for a walk down this trail, and next thing they get little pebbles come out of nowhere. They keep going, and then as Buck mentioned, they get bigger and bigger as they progress along this trail. It gets to the point where they're throwing sort of golf ball size stones at these people. The mother and daughter get freaked out. They turn around and go back, and the husband keeps going. I think he went another half a kilometre, or somewhere between half a K and so about 500-600 metres. And he turned around because he was getting tennis ball size rocks thrown at him, and that's when he turned around to come back. So she contacted us, and she's asking the question. I was like, well, pretty sure it's called Yowie Trail for a reason. And she's like, yeah, you might be right. I said, yeah, well, that's usually what happens, as Buck stated. You don't leave, the rocks get bigger and they get more accurate. Mm-hmm. Now, I have heard the same thing over there in the US. Mm-hmm. Depending on location, Boogers in the south, there in Texas way. Listening to Wes Germer, Sasquatch Chronicles, his guest encounters as well, where they speak of like the hotter climates, the more humid climates where they're a lot more aggressive and more agitated. So our accounts are very similar as well. So North Queensland, it's a lot hotter up there. So, we're at the moment here on the Gold Coast, I woke up to 4 degrees, which for us, that's freezing bloody cold. However, North Queensland, they'll still be pushing 30, 35 degrees today. Oh. That's Celsius, by the way. So, yeah, I think depending on location, depends on their aggression as well. And then on top of that, like I say to people as well, it's like going to the pub. There's going to be happy people, there's going to be not so happy people. Yeah. And it depends who you run into on that day. So if you're in our location where they are a lot more chilled, a lot more relaxed, a bit more peaceful as such, yes, you might get a couple of rocks thrown across the trail, but they usually don't come towards you, which is from our experience. For example, at the day that we come up on this trail, which led us to Buck's Amazing Thermals, walking in the trail, and we actually saw a rock come up off the side and bounce across the trail in front of us. So location dependent. I think that's sort of when you'll find out if they're happy or not. But otherwise, yeah, I think they are very similar to the beings that you have over there in North America.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And that's the thing that I find absolutely amazing, because if you think about it, the fact that they've been, I guess, it's hard to know when each place was settled by these Yowies / Bigfoot. But, we have to assume that they've been in both places for thousands of years, but yet they still have so many behavioral consistencies. So I have to believe they must have a common ancestor at least. But you would think there would be more diversity in how they behave, because I don't know how much about Australia. I do apologize, but I know you guys have all the seasons and stuff, at least in the southern part, but that the fact that they have very similar, if not identical, behaviors, to me is just, that's really got me stunned. I'm just stunned by that, because you would think that they would develop over all of that time separate from each other. And maybe there are many things just because we don't know much about them, but the primary behaviors are consistent across the map. And I find that just really intriguing.
Well, you would naturally expect there would be some divergence, once the continent shifted. Like if we put a science-based level field to this, you would think, okay, yes, their size would remain consistent, their behaviours probably consistent, their diet consistent, the way they communicate, like with tree knocks and X markers you have over here and X markers we have over here, in varying sizes, and perhaps even some of the vocals that they give out, people would assume rightly that they are similar. But for example, if you get a killer whale from the north and you get a killer whale from the south, you can't put them in the same pond. Well, not pond, that's fresh water, but you can't put them in the same enclosure and expect them to communicate.
Oh, really?
Because no, they don't. And one of the problems, I think, with some of the killer whales is that, yes, they do click and they do use echolocation and some type of semaphore with the way their eyes open, and they can communicate that. But you can't expect, you grab a Frenchman and you bring him over here and expect us to communicate if we've had no experience of each other. So I imagine that there is some scope for exploring the differences in the way they do communicate. And this last expedition that we went on, the kind of glyphs and the sticks that were placed after the event, that's the thing that blew my mind, because Gary and Dean have been talking about sticks and stickland, and I was going, okay, are you sure it's not deadfall? Which is a natural question. They go, no, it's not deadfall. Until you see it, then you don't have this kind of context to put it in. No, it's not deadfall. Could a human put it there? Yes, but I really doubt it. On that particular evening, in context, no. There are only 4 humans there, and we did not put these markers, these weird glyphs, by the side of the track where I'd been filming most of the night. And so I expected there to be similarities plus these, gaping differences, that's been stretched out by eons.
Yeah, that's just incredible.
That's exactly right.
I think you're absolutely on it. Because I didn't know that about the killer whales. That's very interesting. I had no idea. I just figured they all spoke killer whale. And
they all have their own different dialects, just like we all do.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense. Then I appreciate that nugget of information. But
Well, if you guys are interested, do you want to do a student exchange program? We'll grab a Yowie, meet you at the airport. We'll swap over a Yowie for a booger.
there you go.
All right.
There you go. I like it. I like it.
How about we
Hang
just,
on. We just want to make sure that there are no nut allergies involved with this because we don't.
well then in that case that nullifies what I was just about to say about sending over this guy named Wes. He is a nut, so there's an allergy, so can't do that. Oh, by the way, Gary, he heard you say that.
We'll give you Dean for Wes.
Ooh. I don't know what to say.
He's going to hate me saying that.
I did have that question. I wondered, do you think that they could possibly be migratory, or do you think that they have just an extended range due to their caloric needs, or what do you guys think is going on?
Personally, a range.
Okay.
Personally, a range. Tracking these beings and also using witness accounts to do the tracking for us as well. Even when Australia had those massive bushfires a couple of years ago, people are like, oh, they've disappeared further north, further south, further west to get away from bushfires. However, the beings that quite commonly get sighted around this area, within a week after the fires had finished, we had two different witnesses in the same area, with two different witnesses report two beings. These two beings crossing this property, and then 2 days later, the same two beings crossing a different property. Again, within the same sort of 5 kilometre radius.
Oh, okay.
But going by their reports, it's the same descriptions that we get from our local troop here in Springbrook. So I don't think they actually migrate.
Okay.
I think their range is very, very big.
Yeah, that seems to make sense to me. What do you think, Buck?
I think that they probably do roam. I imagine that, there comes a time in a young male Yowie's life where he's thinking, I'd like to start my own family, but he's got to go a bit further afield. So
Sure.
we believe they move around in family units, and as Gary said so rightly, the first thermal images he got with the new guide IR-50, there were these two giant beings, but further off in the distance, and they correlate very similar in size and heft with the more closer versions of the ones that I got up at Springbrook, but they're on the same ridge. So we assume that will be the same unit. Mm-hmm. And there may be three. We still unclear whether we got 3 or 2 that evening, and it would stand to reason that one of these units might be the local called Big Red that lives around there that a lot of other people have seen. Like the residents of Tamborine and Springbrook have seen this giant, very muscular being that has a reddish tinge to it, and they've just affectionately called this person Big Red, or this creature Big Red. So we're hoping that we're on an individual, and we can extrapolate, get more evidence, while the iron is hot, because it's rare that we come across something that's so fresh and so immediate that we can go, let's go out. And we did go out. Like there was a night that we followed up with after that thermal imaging. Like I couldn't get any time off. These guys had gone off, just 3 of them, to try and follow up and do some more thermal imaging. I'd finished work at 10 and I drove 100 kilometres to stop off at the head of the trail for Dean and the other guys to come and meet me 2/3 of the way down, so to go 1/3 of the way in the darkness. So we will do this because it's so fresh and so active. If we don't do it, we're losing an opportunity. But we all also have to earn a living.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Gary West says, "I'll take it." Says, "I'll take it, Gary."
He'll take the trade.
So just got to tell Dean he's going to have to host Sasquatch Chronicles for a while. So yeah, that's
sure. We'll get Wes out there with us to go look for Big Red. He's about 9 foot, according to witness reports.
wow. That's a lot of creature.
Yeah.
Wow. I got to ask you, and you kind of mentioned you got close to it, but I wanted to ask you about the fires. Since you guys have been researching in the following all of those devastating fires, how has that changed your research, or how has it changed the reporting, or has it at all?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. If anything, we've had more witness reports coming. It really hasn't changed anything.
Wow.
I think as the only thing that's sort of changed with the fires is that the back of my property's burnt. That's about it. It's pretty much. Otherwise, all the witness audio reports haven't changed. Again, that they've increased, and it's honestly there's nothing to really say there. Like, it's exactly the same as what it was.
No,
the only thing that's changed is Corona, because that impacts us sometimes because,
Sure.
We'll get a snap lockdown for 3 days, which will be a circuit breaker, which means I can't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But Gary and Dean are free to roam around the bush, but that's kind of what's changed.
Mm-hmm.
There was a plan that we would go to northern New South Wales to interview some very old and ageing farmers that have got stories that they've been holding on to for about 60 years of their encounters. Now, that's vital that we can document that.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't been able to do that because the borders have been closed, and when they've been opened, the scope to do it hasn't presented itself. But this latest sighting has pushed us out into the bush way more than usual.
I'll bet. Now you said there were more reports, Gary. Do you think that could be in a response to the fires, and that maybe the fires pushed some of them out of their normal areas and they got moved into other areas, and maybe that's why there's more reports coming in, because there's more of them in a given area than before?
I think the closest I could say that would be with all the human activity with the fire trucks and that thing getting around in the bush, possibly cutting off routes back to where they came from. So these beings are possibly staying in these locations further afield until things calm down a bit. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, there is a lot of bush out there. So at the most, I think that's probably the closest we could get to.
Sure.
Otherwise, yeah, I mean, like, it's the reports. I think also with more people like slowly opening their minds to this possibility.
Yeah.
That will help a bit as well. Like, we had a little while ago, some friends of mine found a 17-inch footprint in stone in the mountains, not too far from my place.
Mm-hmm.
And that made the front page of our local paper. And once they hit the paper, saw a massive influx of people joining Bigfoot/Yowie groups. Groups that I was involved in went from, say, 250 members to 2,000, 3,000 members within a couple of weeks.
Wow.
So I think that there may be more people coming to the realisation, but I think, if anything, it's probably more so people who have had encounters and sightings 10, 20, 50 years ago are now possibly feeling more comfortable to actually come forward with their reports, which is basically what Dean's website is about, to help people in a therapeutic reason to come forward with their sightings and encounters. Because, as Buck said earlier, like, it's not really something you can just go down the pub and start talking about. Right. So once more people are talking about it, that'll help more people come out of the woodwork and actually maybe speak to someone about their sighting or encounter they had 15, 20 years ago.
One thing, Gary, you remind me about encounters is when we go back to Bellbird Grove. Sorry, am I exciting you too much?
A little too much macho there.
Yeah. Whew. The Bilbo Grove sighting was interesting to us because we weren't as devastated by the fires as they were down south. But when Corona hit and we had lockdown, people weren't moving. Mm-hmm. And so we had a very, very, very close encounter sighting about 17 k's from the heart of Brisbane, which is unusual in the fact that where these creatures were sighted in a normal year, it would be filled with, hikers and trekkers, but they obviously felt quite comfortable. No one was around, so they came a bit closer to Brisbane. That was a much easier place to hike to. You still have to, gruel it out a bit, but that was something that I remembered that, lockdown just stopped humans, but they would have continued on, and they did, and they came a bit closer, in my mind, in that encounter.
Yeah, that's it. That's absolutely. I can't. It doesn't surprise me because I think you're right. I think that they probably. I mean, there's no doubt that they actively avoid us, and in the absence of us, I'm sure they expanded their range a little bit. And went, hey, I haven't seen them for a long time. Let's go check out what's in there. And so it doesn't surprise me at all that they would be pushing the boundaries. And do you guys get many reports of them in urban areas?
It comes and goes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on the location, to be honest with you. Like the Australian cities do back onto bushland a fair bit. Most Australian cities will back onto bushland. So it does happen, but then with housing development as well, that also plays a big part in these sightings and encounters. When you've got these beings that are freely roaming these areas, and next you know, some developer wants to make $50 and goes and knocks down a heap of trees. So next thing you know, you are going to have those people in that immediate area will start to have encounters or sightings, or start to hear strange things that they've never heard before.
Or the workmen that are tasked to remove the trees or bring up the heavy plant machinery up there, get freaked out because they've had an aggressive encounter, and they won't go back. So that's a well-worn path to a sighting, is when we do encroach on their territory with, as Gary said, new developments.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant take too, because I think that they probably do. And they have a cycle how they do things, and they have paths that they do them on. And once we interrupt that, doesn't necessarily change their behavior. They're still going to probably follow that path until it becomes uncomfortable, and then they'll change it.
Right.
Well, they're just going to be pissed off and yelling at people.
Yeah, there's that too. There's that too. Do you think that could be pushing the envelope towards more aggressive reactions, much like in the You've said that there's already a lot of reports of aggressive Yowies. Do you think that encroachment? I mean, it's just speculation. I don't expect any concrete answers, but I'm just curious what you guys think. Do you think as we continue to encroach, it's going to encourage more aggressive response?
Yeah, I think that is a very high possibility. I mean, You can imagine these beings with their troops would be going to certain locations, which they've probably done for the last 100 years, and in a peaceful, serene location where they can go relax and do what they do. And next thing you know, there's a dozer has come through and knocked down the trees, and all of a sudden their peaceful location is now being disturbed.
Yeah. So
I think, depending on the situation, I don't see why. I mean, if it was me, I'd get pissed off too.
Yeah.
So for them to get pissed off about it, I completely understand why that would happen.
In 1975, when I was having my first encounter, it was beside a dam, and it was a very new dam. So I would imagine this creature may have been living down in the creek. And in the next few years, suddenly this whole valley is flooded, and he's forced up and closer to roads and, areas where he he/she, I'm pretty sure it was he, could be sighted. So we do drive them up and out with clearing and, flooding valleys.
Yeah, I think that's got to be very true. And what a I know that the expansion is going to be always necessary to a degree, but yeah, I mean, changing the entire ecosystem has got to be a brutal smack to their, to the way they've survived for thousands of years. So
Exactly.
but I suppose we could probably start talking about what happened on this fateful night when the thermal footage was captured. I don't know if you want to give away the specific details. I don't know how you view that, but
I think the specific details are fine. It's probably more the location that we try not to disclose too much.
Sure.
So as you've seen in our expedition videos when we've been in the kayaks and that kind of thing, so this all started when the evening that we went out in the kayaks, when we came back at about 4:30 in the morning. And it's things like 700-meter walk back up a trail to get back to the road to where the vehicles were. So we're all depleted and tired and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We get back up to where the vehicles are, and as we're loading our gear back into my van, Dean got growled at from across the road, and I didn't hear any growling, but I heard movement up there. But that was within 30 seconds of each other. So that moment right there is what sparked off this ridgeline. So from that point on, we kept researching this particular area, which involved us going up into that area, going down below that area, sitting in the dark as you do with no lights on, which in turn gave me the thermals that I captured, which again led us off in that direction. So Dean and I decided we need to get up on top of that ridge and see where it goes. So this is the reason why this ridgeline got called Hamstring Hill. So let me tell the story. So myself and Dean have climbed up this ridgeline, finding track impressions, that kind of thing along the way. And as we're coming back down, Dean stepped over a log and in turn popped his hamstring. Oh! So me being the generous, loving, big-hearted person I am, said, "Stop! Don't move. I want to get a photo." So Dean's laying there in agonising pain, just so I could grab a quick photo, and then I helped him up. So that's why this ridgeline got called Hamstring Hill. Oh. So that led on to other expeditions where we actually went all the way up this ridgeline. We got to the top of it, found a trail up there, found the sticks in the ground straight away. And from there it was a case of trying to find a better way to get to this location so we could do a night expedition. And luckily in turn we actually did find a much easier point of access to get to this location. So again, we're on this trail. It is a walking trail, but it is still dense, thick bushland. Mm-hmm. And from there, it was a case of, I think we went there after that first expedition, and Dean and I went back there twice to scout it out. And then after that, the night was set. The date was set for us to get there that night.
Wow. Yeah, and I'd heard and seen some of the expeditions that they were on. Again, working 3 jobs just so I can say I've got a job in the arts. And so when I had a spot in my dance card, I said, sure, I'm up for it, and I was pleased I'd found an easy way, because if that was the easy way, the hard way would have just been impossible, because we pushed this this cart through waist-deep lantana for quite a few kilometres over 2 fences, and eventually got up onto this clearer fire trail. Mm-hmm. And so we arrived after dark, and we are spent, we are just, I am. And I'm going, how lucky am I? I'm getting the easy way in. So Dean had a routine he wanted to do, which was the happy camper. We would get up, say, up a campsite, do a bit of cooking, have an area with a perimeter of just sunlight, so it looks like this is where the humans are. And one of us would sneak off with the thermal just quietly and see what we could get, being a stimulus or an attractant, an object of curiosity in that area. And Gary gave me a rundown of the new thermal unit. I've used the FLIR heaps of times in the past, but this particular unit is more complex. It's got a much better capture rate. It has all these settings and filters that show different details that help you navigate through the bush. And I normally go without a light anyway. I just like to use my night vision. But the thermal was going to be a game changer. So I went up. It was maybe about 80 to 100 meters away from camp. And there was nothing to report. It was just very quiet. There was nothing going on until I saw this curious heat signature, what I perceived to be, like up a tree, like the trees behind Gary on his vision there. I thought, it looks like something's holding on to a tree and maybe, 3 or 4 meters off the ground. I couldn't tell the distance because I hadn't seen the place in the dark, plus I'm using this new unit. And I could see it looked like 2 heat signatures, maybe like hands. But they were way further down, and I was perceiving a face or a head peering around and looking in the direction of the camp. Mm-hmm. And so I radioed the boys. We've got earpieces in. I said, hey, guys, I've got my first heat signature. I'm looking at it. I'm trying to work out what it is. Stand by. And then this is at the beginning of a 20-minute clip because I didn't switch off. So in this clip, it goes for maybe about nearly 2 minutes. At various stages, something pops its head out. It's hard to tell what it is, but it's not a koala because the hands would be really close to its head, and it's not a possum, but it's worthy of inspection. Anyway, so radio again, and this time I felt like it heard me because it just looked at me and then pulled back behind the tree. Then one by one, the hand signatures just disappeared. And that's the first time I heard anything like jumping off and a settling in the ground like a crunch, or it was soft. It wasn't like a stomp. Sure. But it warranted some explanation and further exploring of what it was. So I walked up and down the track quite a few times, and I told the boys, hey, I'm coming back. I want you to see this. But then I didn't. I just kept going. Mm-hmm. And then I found this curious heat signature behind a log. And this is where it gets, fantastic in terms of what happened was I could see something that was kind of human-shaped, kind of like a head in or behind the log. I can't tell what type of foliage is in front of me obscuring it, but it's annoying. And I decide, I get a little bit, not freaked out, but I go, it'd be better if Gary had my 6 by seeing if he could see me and perhaps get another visual on what I was looking at. So Gary said, sure, mate, because he never says no. He said, sure, I'm on it. And
don't tell everyone that. Don't tell
everyone. He's a yes man. Anyway, so Gary says, yeah, I've got you in sight. I can see you while I'm looking off into the bush. And this new unit has the option of using an app with your phone. I didn't know that at the time, or I just didn't pay any attention. I just wanted to get out there. But when you're filming, if you want to zoom in because the buttons have different assignments, you have to actually stop filming and then zoom in. Oh. If you're using the app on the phone, you can do it on the phone, but then there's also a lot of light spill. I had, very little light spill. I just had it pressed to my eye. And maybe one tiny little green LED on the pop. There's nothing coming from that unit. So I zoom in on the stump, and so I've stopped that clip. There's 20 minutes of some action, and then me searching for 20 minutes, going left, right, up and down. So I'm trying to find this stump where this heat signature was again. I can't find it, and you probably heard it was just awful. I'm looking left, I'm looking right. Just towards the end of this, I see some big, strong heat signatures coming through this stand of foliage, and I radio back. It's human shaped, it's big, it's large, it's massive. And Gary heard it, and he said, "I'm coming up." And at this time, a lot of things are happening for me. I'm not scared, but I'm actually frightened. I'm missing the shot because I've got the thermal unit right up against my eye, and it's filming the actual viewfinder, and I'm still trying to decipher what it is, but I want to zoom back, and I've forgotten you have to switch off the camera, so I just end up changing all these filters so it looks like I'm on drugs or something because it goes with all these pretty colours. In turn, they provide a lot more detail later on analysis.
Sure.
And Gary says, "I'm coming up." Just at the time I cut it to zoom back. And whatever happens then, they look in his direction and then they just go. They just vanish. When I say vanish, they go behind trees. But there was absolutely no sound. And I've told quite a few people about this, that I could have just as well been looking on the other side of the track and not known they were there. But their activity and their interest was purely based on what was going on at camp. They knew we were there, and they came to investigate. And whatever Gary came up, his testosterone level must have been so high. They went, "We're not going to hang around for him."
That's before I cut my long hair.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's awesome. Let me put one of the images up here, and it might take you guys a couple seconds. I don't know if I'm starting on the right place or not. I might not be. Where the hell's the arrows on this damn thing?
I've got to get you up.
Yeah, so that's the comparison size video photo.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, if that's 8
so
feet.
that's if Daniel Buck sent you that picture with the four of us, and then that's that heat signature beside me. So pretty much he's got us set at 6 foot. We're roughly about 6 foot. Dean's about 9 foot.
Yeah, very tall. He's the tallest member. We're often asking him to get things off a shelf.
Okay, so this one is the first. I think this is the first image. I think, and this is. It says on the head.
That's
Dunbilberg.
That's the eye shine that Dean captured at Bellbird Park.
Oh, man.
Yes, so that was the lead up. This is, the failing technology that when an opportunity presented to us, Dean's given us the best unit, and he's looking after his old Nokia, 912, and it wasn't where it needed to be. So that's why he's thermaled up.
But still, the size of those eyeballs is huge.
It's
Yeah,
huge.
we did a size comparison of that, and those eyes are about 8.5 foot.
Oh my God.
So we actually went there during the day. Dean sat in the same position, and through different aspects of that photo, branches and knots in trees, that kind of thing, that we use that to try and line up exactly where Dean was looking. And once he's done that, Buck and I were over the other side there, because there's a valley in between that eye shine and where Dean was sitting. And then Buck and I went over there. We 99.9% found exactly where it was, and which meant that eye shine is about 8.5 foot up.
And you can tell it's leaning too, so that's not even standing fully erect.
Correct. So he watched that beam poke its head out multiple times. So as he's on the radio to myself and Buck, as we're having a cup of tea on the other side of the hill. So we're making our way up, and this thing's poking its head out, back in, back out, back in, then the other side, back in. And then just before we got there, he said it poked its head out one more time, and then it turned and walked back up the ridgeline.
Wow. That is just...
And again, unfortunately, he was using the aging flare knot one of the new guide, not one of the new guide cameras. If it was one of the new guide cameras, that would have been amazing footage. He said he actually watched it walk back up the ridgeline.
Oh man. Okay, and here's the next
Hi
one.
there, I'm Sophie Howard, and I'm actually
Is it?
Sorry.
Oh, that was.
Yes. Okay, so
Hi, Sophie.
that's me on the 6 foot line,
Okay.
and that's size comparison up to the being that buck captured.
My God, that's so big. That's incredible.
Yeah, so Gary was the biggest unit out there, and as soon as it happened, I asked for everybody's heat signatures so we could start, some type of comparison, because naturally people go, oh, you just filmed Gary. And you'll probably see as we go through the thermal images, when you see Gary, you know that's Gary. He's got his beard and his long flowing locks when he had hair and was strong.
Yeah.
And you can see the
I'm
creases.
married, mate. Calm down.
I'll get your wedding ring back, sir. I'll make a forest bride of you yet.
Ooh. They call that stump broke. Stump broke here in the U.S. Down south, anyway. So here's the group of you guys. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, you can clearly see that there's clothes. The clothes definitely do distort the heat signatures versus
Correct.
this figure. Yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
that's amazing.
That's incredible.
That's a big. I've often tried to consider what would that be like to just be suddenly walking along and suddenly something 9 foot tall steps out, and that's what it would be like.
Yeah.
Oh,
I do the same thing every time I see a shipping container, because on the shipping containers they have the foot reference
Right.
up the side of the shipping container. You see a shipping container, and I stand there. I always stare at a shipping container for a couple of seconds, just to see that 8-9 foot marker on the container.
yeah.
Just to have a bit of think about it.
That's just insane. I mean, just the power and the strength and the fact that they can walk so quietly with
Yeah.
all of that mass
Yep.
is just mind-boggling. And I often wonder if there's a function to their feet, because I know elephants can walk through a forest very silently. Like, they don't make any noise really either unless you're right next to them. But they also, are stepping on this big gel pad, and they're basically tiptoeing on, and their heels are squishing onto this cartilage pad or something. But I wonder if there's a similar function to the bottom of a Bigfoot's foot.
Well, I mean, I'd imagine that it'd be something in the way that they walk and how they step and how they transfer their weight.
Sure.
I mean, like in where they were standing, we did find 17 to 18 inch track impressions heading directly for our camp. So I think that's the direction I was going before I disturbed them as I was walking up towards Buck. But yeah, I mean, like that is a question that we do ask ourselves quite a fair bit, because it is quite thick, and there is a lot of leaf litter on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So you should hear cracking and leaves moving and that kind of thing. And then on top of that, like when Buck watched them move off, the mind-boggling thing is that a heat signature of that size, the way it moved off so quietly and so quickly, it just doesn't make sense how they can move off like that.
Yeah, I mean, even to the point of not like breaking branches as it's walking away or something that you would expect with that much girth and that much size.
Oh, trust me, they break branches. That's definitely for true. That one.
Well, we went back recently. In fact, it was last Friday, and Gary and I wanted to know why they were so quiet, and we did a little experiment where we could see how far we could get with Buck walking off. So Gary could see me. Once you get about 20 or 30 meters away, which we think this is roughly 20 meters away, it becomes harder to hear what's going on.
Sure.
And so Gary has also observed, quite rightly, that the way their gait would move, they would pick up their their feet and place it on the ground rather than us shuffling through it and making a lot of cracking sound.
Sure.
But sound does dissipate. All the branches and all the leaves scatter the sound. So if the origin of the sound is on the ground, there's going to be a lot of foliage to absorb that sound. So they may have made sound I just may not have been aware of it because I was just so focused on the image. I was so focused on what I was looking at. But, it was quiet. I would have expected something. And then, of course, after the thing, I didn't come straight back again. Like I promised, I just went up and down trying to see if I could find them again because people said, why didn't you go after them? I did. But I can't get off this fire trail without getting hung up in these savage vines that we've got there called wader-wales. They're just covered in razor-sharp thorns, and they grab your neck, every part of you. It's like some alien universe sometime out there. Now, it's hard to move around in the day, let alone at night.
Right.
But I think they're so familiar with what they do, they negotiate it very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is a different picture. This is all dark with a bunch of notations on the screen. Yowie 2 is watching in the opposite direction, keeping guard. Yowie 2 is over here on the left. Yowie 1 is on the right. And it looks like sloping forehead, large eye ridges, deep set eyes, pronounced jaw, thick neck, and Yowie 1 is bending over to pick something up from the ground. That's really amazing.
We don't know what it did. It bent down and we saw this giant hand reach down and pick up something or place down something. I think it was picking up something. Moreover, like when I look back at it, this is also all on reflection. The actual footage is only a few seconds long. And you don't have the advantage of in real time playing it back straight away. So it wasn't until I got back to camp when we started looking at it, we started seeing all this other detail that was happening there. So it reached down off the ground with some big long arm and picked something up, did something to it. I don't know if it gave it to the other one, but it did it twice.
Huh. Maybe they're getting their rocks ready. Their rocks ready.
Well, that was the thing as well. Like when we went back there during the day, there was no berries. There was nothing upturned. There was no logs in that immediate area. There's no rocks in that immediate area. So, yeah, as Buck said, we have no idea what it was actually doing when it was bending down.
Wow, that's really cool. All right. And it was right after that you said you found the glyphs, right?
Next morning. So, yeah,
Next morning.
sometime between 2:30 a.m. and 5 a.m. is when they put those stick symbols out on the trail.
There's where I'm looking at. I think I sent you a thermal image of me looking at them, but it's Gary has got me. I'm looking at them. They're at 12, and Gary's on my 3. Okay. A bit further up is this big log that I was using as a reference point to mark where I was in the evening. It's on the crest of the hill, the final push before we come down to where the camp is. It's like, a bit flatter. Gary and I and Dean, we all went up and down that track scores of times, and I've got pictures of the wallabies I've sent you were hopping through then in that area. Coincidentally, the wallabies appeared after these creatures left. For me, I found that odd. But Gary, who's a big lad, you can see, would knock down any stick or any type of glyph or stuff. Like we'd walk straight into it, we would have noticed it. Plus, in the heat signatures I sent of Gary near the log, you would see the actual sticks there if they had been there while we were observing it. So, excuse me, it happened at night. It happened after we left the area.
I'm just going through the images.
Excuse me.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, after Buck captured these amazing thermals, and Buck went back up into that area. He'd been up there for quite a while, and as you do, your back and your legs get tired. Yeah. So I grabbed a couple of chairs and I actually went up to that area, but he'd actually gone a little bit further. So that picture that you showed with him, that I took of him watching into the bush there, he actually went past that location by roughly another 15 to 20 metres. So I actually took 2 chairs up and went up there with him and sat down in the chairs with him. And these stick symbols, as he said, I would have walked straight through them. If not, I would have tripped over them. So they were 100% not there before we went to bed.
Now this is a picture I'm just blown away by. This one is clearly a Yowie in color, but it's a little bit out. But you can clearly see the eye ridges, the eyes, this broad shoulders.
And the forearm and the thumb. If you look a little bit lower, you'll see a forearm. If you go to the right of the picture, which has been enhanced, you'll see a forearm and a thumb.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a picture that when Dean and I met up with a witness at Bellbird Park, and he wanted to show us a couple of locations in that national park. So I think we walked. That day we walked, I think it was 18, 19 kilometres. And as we're coming back down the road, Dean just looked down off the road into the vegetation to his left, and he saw this dark sort of object down there. So he just took a photo, kept on walking, and it wasn't until he got home that night and went through his photos and realised that dark shadow wasn't a shadow; it was actually potentially that being you've got up on the screen.
Wow, that's amazing. That is an amazing shot. That's a 1 in a million right there. But I mean, a lot of times you see these pictures of alleged faces in the foliage, and they look like foliage, but maybe with some qualities that you kind of, could it be a face? I don't know. But this is just clearly a huge figure. I mean, just the size of the shoulders in comparison to the head. It really takes me back, because you've got to consider the power of that thing. I mean, with arms that big, it could roll a truck with one arm. I mean, it's just amazing. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if a chimpanzee has 7 times the strength of the average man, that's just a chimpanzee, let alone a gorilla, let alone one of these beings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a gorilla at about 5 or 6 feet tall is stronger than 8 Olympic weightlifters, and then one of these things. It's like, oh my God, that is just incredible, and it's phenomenal. I mean, all of these images that were sent, that you guys sent to me, both Dean and you, I'm just floored by them, because the eye shines are so incredible and pronounced.
Well, the eye shine in that one of the creature by the by the tree. The previous picture you had up is only a kilometre or so away from that FLIR photo where the eye shine was. Now, this one here that you've got up is what was piquing my curiosity when I decided to zoom in. Now, I never found that heat signature again. Like I had something that looked like a head and eyes. It was behaving very oddly behind this stump, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't a kangaroo or a possum or even an owl. I'm very reticent to say, hey, I found something, come up here quick, until I've examined it. And I'm pretty sure when they heard me on the radio go, oh my God, it's human shaped. They're probably just as surprised as I was.
There's no question. These are just amazing. I got a question in the chat, and this question is from a listener, Ruger Ridge, and he says, do Yowies have the clear hair like some say that Bigfoot does? And it's kind of like the belief that Yowies' hair is like translucent or
like a polar bear.
Yeah. Do you guys
possibly?
Okay.
Yeah, I think with Dean's experience, he's probably the best one to ask for that. I'm happy to say I've got no idea if their hair is clear or not.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to ask him, Ruger, and get back to you unless Dean happens to be in the chat watching, which he may very well be. But yeah, I know there's been a lot of speculation about the Bigfoot hair, as far as almost having like a prismatic or other effect that may take on the color of the surroundings, and I think that's an interesting theory, and it does seem to have merit. But like that picture that Dean got of the black Bigfoot by that tree. First of all, it's so amazing how they use the cover. Like, they really utilize their cover. They don't make mistakes. It doesn't seem like very rarely, but they really utilize their surroundings and they blend in so well. It's just amazing.
Well, I mean, well, it's their land room, their home, their front yard. So, I mean, it's the same as us. You know, if we had to play hide and seek with a stranger in our own yard, we know all the exact places to hide and which way to go and which way to go up and under and over and around.
Yeah.
So I think just being part of their natural habitat. I think if we did the same, if we went into the bush for say 12 months, and we decided to live like a wild man, I think that within a couple of months we would get very good at doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Obviously not as good as them because they are the masters of their environment.
Right.
But I think there's so many aspects to these beings that we just don't know.
Sure.
So it's as much of a guessing game as it is of trying to know what we're talking about. All we can do is try and learn every time we go out, and hopefully then we can put all these points together and come up with a relative conclusion. Because again, be it their hair, is it solid or is it clear? The way they move through the bush, the way they camouflage themselves, the way that they just disappeared off the thermal from buck, even though there's two beings at 8 to 9 foot tall, they just simply disappear.
Yeah.
There's just so much we don't know. So there's so much that we have to learn and put ourselves out in these locations to learn as much as we can and gather this information and try and come through with a positive answer.
Right.
There's an experience that I always come back to, and that was with myself and Dean. We're in the Blue Mountains, and he'd had an idea. What he'd want to do was stay up on the high ground and send 3 researchers in to search this valley for a known resident, which was affectionately named Fatfoot.
Oh.
Now, I went down there with Mike and a guy called Aaron, and we split off in different directions. We had radios, and Dean stayed up the top. And he had a camera, but this is 2005. I think the best it was like a 5 megapixel camera. He radios me and says, "Buck, are you alone?" And I say, "Yeah." And he said, "I think you got company." And I've gone, "What?" Now, he snaps off 2 photos, and you can go onto the AYR site and have a look at these. It just, again...
It's on your shirt, mate.
That's it there. Check that out. There's this dark shape nestled in the fork of a tree looking down to where I would be. Now, Dean changes his position, runs over to get a better vantage point, and this creature does the same thing. There are 2 photos. It's just black, and we have to actually do the circle outside to show where this thing is hiding. Now, I had no idea. But here's the kicker for me. We're all down in that gully, and only Dean saw something, but 3 of the researchers, including me, came back with really amazing footprints. I found these footprints that were in the water where it obviously disturbed the algae, and it walked away from me. Aaron found this amazing print just on this rock. It was just so... it was like a stepping stone, this amazing print of a rock. And Mike found one on one of the walking trails just further around. So there are 3 prints from most probably the same creature. I didn't see a thing.
Wow.
They're definitely the hide and seek champions. And I had no idea. I had zero idea that was happening. Just kind of like I had zero idea when I had the thermal until something popped up. But the thermal levels the playing field.
Yeah, it seems to definitely be the case. There was a question in chat as well from the Uzi 9mm or 9mm. It says, "What made the guys select this particular location to search for yowies?" I think you kind of mentioned this before, but could you repeat where these thermal images? What caused you to select this place?
Yeah, so that was
TripAdvisor.
TripAdvisor. No, it was literally getting out and going into the bush and searching and looking for signs. It's as simple as that. And then once we find enough signs in a particular area, then we'll implement some kind of night expedition and see what we can get. But I mean, Otherwise, yeah, that's it's literally it. Like actually going out and looking for evidence of something moving through the bush, be it tracks or be it being broken branches, be it tree breaks or X's or any other signs like that. And the fact that we got one set of thermals, plus I think it was like 20 to 30 track impressions up this ridge line, and then to finally get to this walking trail up top and find sticks in the ground, which you don't see in a lot of locations. You do see them elsewhere, but not in a lot of locations. Mm-hmm. And just basically following through with the search from that point on, and then basically going off gut feeling to choose a location to actually do the night expedition.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Buck. I don't know. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, well, exactly. You have to be there. You really have to be there to be part of this journey. We're always trying to create the intersect. Like, people who've witnessed these creatures have had an intersect in their life where their paths have crossed theirs by accident or sometimes by design. And we're trying to do the same. We're trying to engender the same type of experience. That's very hard because we find that no matter how many invitations we send out by tree mail, whatever, they just, they ghost us. So you have to go out there if you are serious about doing some research, and be prepared to fail. Be prepared to come back with nothing, except a few tick bites and leaf scratch marks or snake bite or dehydration. But you learn something every time you go out. So
it's about the repetition of these areas as well. You can't just go out to an area once and hope that you'll get lucky. Well, yeah, like that might happen once in a blue moon, but it is about repetition. Like these areas, it's not a case of us going like once we've selected a location. It's not that the point that we'll go there for one night and then that's it. We'll go somewhere else. We've been to these locations many times, multiple nights in a row. And as you know, Brent, we were in this location this Friday night just gone. Unfortunately, the craziest thing to happen was with the heavy cold winds that were coming through. A tree fell right beside Dean. Dean was up in the bush by himself, about 30-40 metres from camp, and out of nowhere a tree falls down right beside him. Why it was right beside him? Don't know if it was tree spirits or someone's playing games with him. Yeah. But a tree fell in the bush right beside him,
and he heard it.
Oh, he heard it. I was sitting off in the darkness in another location. I heard the tree come down. And as I turn around to walk back towards base camp, I see this because when we leave base camp, we only use red light. There's no white light is allowed to be used. That's only for around camp. Reason being is that red light doesn't carry through the bush. So I've turned around, headed back towards camp, and I see this red light come bouncing down the trail. Could not see Dean, just this red light bouncing down the trail. Which fair enough, because of the interactions, I guess you call them, Dean's had with these beings over the years.
Yeah.
He wasn't sure if it was Buck's best friend there knocking down a tree toward Dean, or if it was just a natural occurrence in the forest.
Sure. Yeah, that's got to be unnerving. A whole tree. Ugh. Got another question. Another question from the chat, and this is Android Purities asking, how do they avoid all the poisonous spiders and snakes in Australia while they're going through the bush?
You just got to pick them up, grab the head, grab the tail, tie them in a knot, swing around, throw them away.
It's true. That's what we do.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Oh boy.
You can make belts and all kinds of other stuff.
No. Well, I think it's
dental floss.
It's natural bush instinct, really, I think, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not that often that we even see snakes when we are out in these locations.
Oh, okay.
There was an encounter up near Kilkeven where one had been observed taking some chickens from a chicken coop. Again, that's a kind of thing that happens across on both continents. Mm-hmm. But one day, this guy who was having this occurrence happening for him he found a snake that had been killed, a poison snake, and it was placed quite carefully where his kid would have been playing in the sand pit. So they can take care of snakes, and they also know what a dangerous snake is.
Oh, sure.
And the takeaway from that thing was that perhaps the creature was concerned that the child might be near a snake, but it certainly killed it and put it there. So I don't think they worry too much about them.
It's like the cat laying the mice on the doorstep, like, here, I've been busy.
Yeah.
That's nice, though. I mean, that's really cool, and that's actually really an endearing thought. I hope that that's the case, because it would be nice to think that they, for the most part, are just being good neighbors as much as they can be. But
Right.
that's a beautiful thought.
Mm-hmm.
On saying that too, like with the chicken side of it, as Buck mentioned, like that happens here, it happens over there where you guys are. I mean, I've heard of the Sasquatch Chronicles with witnesses, and where I live up in the mountains where I am, the lady who runs the local store, she even hears them when because I back onto an army reserve off the back of my place, and she even hears them when they come through the army base. She hears them screaming, and every time she hears them screaming as they're moving from that location to another location, she always, pretty much every time, she'll have at least 1 to 3 chooks missing. And that is the case of they unlatch it, take a couple of chooks out, and put the latch back on. So there's obviously very high intelligence to these beings as well.
That's interesting, because we have a local story here just within like 15 miles of us. And Brent and I took it a couple years ago. We went out and looked at it, and part of the story was that these people had like 15 or 30 chickens, and then all of a sudden they just started losing 1 or 2 or 3, here or there, over the course of like a month, to where they're whittled down to like 10 chickens left. And the thing is when a coyote or a dog or a wild animal gets a hold of a chicken, they have a tendency to thrash it, and they blow feathers. Well, there was no blow. There was no feather blow. There was no blood trail. Nothing. It's like they just reached in, grabbed him by the neck, like you said, Gary. 1, 2, 3. And out the door they go. Yeah, we have that very, very much so. Yeah.
And not far away, we found what we believe is a structure, and it's a dome-like structure.
Right.
It was built.
Oh, wow.
It was built by taking a sapling about this round.
Yeah.
And bending it over. So, and bending it, not breaking it, but just bending it over. And then all these branches were broken off of this huge conifer tree, and were like woven in, like in a really rudimentary weave all together. It was really incredible. I've got pictures. I'll send them to you guys so you guys can check it out. But,
Cool.
And about a quarter mile away, we found this huge footprint. Didn't measure it, but it's pretty sizable. And I can send you a picture of that as well. So, it's funny that the same behaviors happen. Now, the interesting thing is that it couldn't have been a predator, because nothing was digging its way into this.
Right.
Nothing had torn its way through the enclosure. All it was is there was this one place where there was this hole. And it seemed to me that they were probably reaching through this hole, grabbing a chicken and pulling it back out. But it was not on the ground level where like a fox or raccoon or other normal predator, bobcat, would go in. It was up on the wall of the chicken structure, and it was like it was just reaching in and grabbing it and pulling them out. And
chicken vending machine.
Yeah, exactly.
A chocachola.
but it's the same.
That type of stuff always fascinates me, because it, if you apply some logic to it, it automatically, like you says, dispels the idea that it'll be a coyote or some other predator. It's up high, and it's either human or it's not. Thumbs. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just blows my mind. But it was really cool to check that out. And, it was funny because after we found the structure, they never lost another chicken.
Yeah.
It was like by us finding that structure and checking it out and maybe touching it.
Right.
One of the people that was with us is a Bigfoot researcher, and she was curious how strong the structure was, and she was able to actually climb up on it and bounce without it collapsing. So
Right.
it was really well done.
Really well done.
But they never touched it again. It
Yeah,
was
they
like,
never came back. It just broke down, went away.
Yeah.
So they must have just said, "Well, we got found. We're out of here." You
Yeah.
know. So
or they didn't like
Yeah.
your chickens.
yeah, they're not the right breed of chicken anymore.
They ate the good ones.
Gary and I did a interview recently along with Dean, and we were in the middle of nowhere, and these two chickens just walk out of the forest. And we are trying to do a serious interview to, a local television station up. These chickens walk out the forest, and they are giant. So they've got to be his. But that was hilarious,
I always say that wherever you go, there's always a random bloody chicken.
Yeah.
There's always a random chicken.
Wow.
That just proves the point.
Wow.
Maybe it's one of the lucky ones that got away, or a couple lucky ones.
Yeah.
They'll big. They would. I reckon if you caught that one, cooked it up, it'll easily feed a family of 20.
Yeah, it was turkey-sized. It was definitely turkey-sized.
That's crazy. I don't know what kind of chickens you guys got over there, but I'm getting
Bloody
hungry.
big ones.
That's awesome. We had another question in the chat I was going to get to.
Well, and somebody asked earlier, how did the name Yowies come around? I mean, obviously it's a local term, but didn't it originally come from the indigenous?
The Aboriginals?
There's been a couple of ideas, haven't there, Gary? Like some people said it was from Gulliver's Travels. There's some creatures called the Yahoos, but there is, I think, a local name called a Yuri. There's Dooligal, there's Quinkin, there's Junjidi. Yeah, there's quite a few names, but Yowie's been the one that's stuck.
Yeah, like you guys over there, Bigfoot / Yowie, it's a collective term, but each location has its own specific name for it. Be it the Junjidi or Dooligal or the Corn Man or the Booger, it's all region specific to the actual name, but it's more of a collective name.
Right.
That's very cool.
Yeah, and we talk about that too. Is like everybody had these different names, Grassman, Swamp Monster, whatever, and then all of a sudden one word came together and brought all those ideas together in a common theme that we all connected with Sasquatch or Bigfoot. So that sounds very similar to what we feel over here with when you guys refer to Yowies and Bunyips or whatever whatever that local term is. So there you go. Thank you.
Yep, very true. We got another question in the chat, and this one's from one of our mods, Titan. He says, Brent, do they wood knock, and have they been bluff charged? I know Dean's been charged. I wouldn't call that a bluff.
They called Dean's bluff, that's for sure.
Oh, wow.
But how about you guys?
Yes, they do. I personally haven't been bluff charged. I've been screamed at within 10 metres away. That was
Wow.
one of the loudest things I've ever heard. Dean's been charged and had, as you know, had contact made a few times. But yes, pretty much whatever happens in the US, it's very similar here.
Okay. And that was another question, but we'd already answered that, is that what are the difference between Yowie and Sasquatch? And there really doesn't seem to be any. But go ahead, Buck, what were you going to say?
The equator.
Yeah. The true knocks are curious. Like you hear them. It's not always a rule that you hear them, but when you hear something knock in more than in succession, it really gets your ears pricked up to what made that, because it wasn't you and it wasn't me. And we often radio each other and say, "Did you just do a wood knock?" And 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10, it's not us, because we're preferring them to initiate the contact, and we don't want to start this knock fest going on in the bush and then feed back on ourselves, and suddenly we have a drummer circle going on and it's just us.
Right.
So we just were very aware that they will communicate. I perceive like a wood knock to be an alarm system. Like we hear it on approach quite often. If we're out there, it's whack, and I can only assume it's the little guys are back again. The Yowie botherers, let's go. And then, you know, in terms of bluff charges, I haven't had a bluff charge. I was followed once and then I ran for my life. That was when I was young. And I haven't had the aggression that some of the other people have had. I would like to hear a scream. I would like to have the rock thrown. I don't know if I'd like to be slapped to the ground like Dean was, but like he was slapped to the ground. And
I don't think Dean liked
He
it.
liked it kinky.
I don't think Dean liked it much either.
It's time to get the leather mask on and the forward gag.
Bring in the gimp.
Bring in the gimp. You're the gimp, buddy. Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's terrifying.
So we were talking about screams and we talk about wood knocks and this guy named Cade just walked in. We'll ignore him. But my question is we talk about
Infrasound?
infrasound. Have you guys had any experiences? Oh my goodness,
no,
get that off our TV.
Oh no, you didn't. I'm sorry, I got to change screens.
No, sorry, you're gone. Bye bye.
Sorry, back
Hang that guy up.
Back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, we had technical difficulties there.
So
Can you tell me what that is? It's this rash that won't go away.
Oh, both of those are terrifying.
So infrasound. What do you guys have you had any experiences or stories of infrasound?
Yes, that night that I got screamed at. Not long after we got screamed at, the guy I was with, a good friend of mine, we experienced. Okay, so that night we could hear vocalizations coming in a certain area from the north and northwest. And every 15, 20 minutes or so, those vocalisations will get closer and closer. And next thing you know, we got screamed at again from roughly 10 metres away behind this big wall of lantana. We couldn't see what it was. Again, this is before Dean, and no thermals, just a torch. That was pretty much it. We could hear this thing bipedally stepping back and forth after the scream, so we're obviously upset there's been. And after that happened, these other vocals from the north and northwest kept coming in every 20 minutes or so. They get the vocal will get louder and louder as they got closer and closer. And opposite us, roughly about 15 to 20 metres away, was this big wall of vine. And it was the kind of night where it was that pitch black that you couldn't see each other. My mate was standing about 2 metres away from me. It was that dark, I could not see him without having a torch or some kind of ambient light. So in this situation, I had the torch to my body, and I thought it just got very eerily quiet all of a sudden. And next thing you know, if you picture 1,000 mosquitoes swarm your head, so all you can hear is that buzzing noise from mosquitoes, but regardless which way you turn, that's all you can hear. And I'm thinking, surely I'm hearing things, like something's not right here. So again, I had the torch to my body, it was on, and I let the head of the torch off my body a bit to give a bit of ambient light, and I walked over towards Wade to see if he could hear the same noise. And as he's turned around and looked at me, his confused look gave me my answer. He could hear this strange buzzing, encompassing, surrounding noise at the same time. And like it was choreographed, we both spun around 180 degrees and hit our torches on this big wall of vine. Again, it was like we planned to do it. It was exactly the same time we spun around, hit this wall of vine with our torches, and then we sort of got a bit freaked out after being screamed at and vocals, and had this strange thing and jumped in the car. So at the time, that's when Brian Sullivan, Duke, was still on Facebook. So I sent Brian a message and told him the situation, and as far as he was concerned, we got hit with a low frequency infrasound that night.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Oh man. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Buck.
And it's okay just to touch in on the infrasound. I haven't heard the sound, but there've been 2 occasions where I believe it may have been used on me. Once when I had my first encounter and I was so terrified, like all reason just evaporated from my head. I'd been reasoning that I was hearing some footsteps behind me while I was doing this cross-country running were my own. Mm-hmm. But when I did a fake run and a stop, I heard this delay in the footsteps behind me, and that's when I felt scared beyond reason. And then the dogs up at this farmhouse went crazy, and that was the perfect setting. And I did a personal best that night, and I never went out again night running after that. And then the only other time where we experienced that terror was in a car with 5 people, where the smell permeated the car. And this was only a few kilometres away from this running encounter that I had. But the terror that went through myself and the girls in the back had us just smashing the seats in front of us, going drive, drive, drive. So that's the only time I've been truly terrified, like out of my wits. I was young then, I didn't know what was happening.
Sure.
On the night in question, I felt a bit uneasy towards the top of the hill where the sticks and glyphs were left, but you can wig yourself out up there because it's dark. And I actually, it was 5% moon, and because I'd been staring into this thermal camera, I had no night vision at all. So as soon as you take it away, you're in blackness. One eye's working very well and the other one is not working at all because you've just given yourself a night blindness. So I was a bit uneasy then, but I would like to have a few more of those so I can, work through that fear and perhaps get the evidence that we want.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that fear because it almost seems like they're able to trigger that at will. Like, people can be doing whatever it is they want to do, and suddenly this fear,
right,
they don't really understand where it's coming from. It might be something they're picking up just subconsciously, like weird sounds, maybe a weird smell or something, but they seem to be able to trigger it and like turn it on or off, like, and that, and the forest goes dead quiet, that kind of thing. It's what the hell's going on? It's like they have an ambience to them, and maybe that's the infrasound. I don't know, but it's just pretty crazy. We do have another question here regarding the thermal images, and this is from Dauzi again. And are you good?
Yeah, I'm laughing at Dean.
Oh, okay. It says the thermal image appears.
That's something we do all the time too.
Oh. All right. The thermal image appears very consistent with no heat blooms. What do the guys attribute this to, particularly when comparing the video to the tree hugger image? I don't know. Do you guys know much about the heat blooms or not? I don't personally, so I don't know what to say.
I thought that the heat on this creature, like this is again, when you're looking back and you're trying to apply some reasoning towards it, it was a very solid signature with no interruption. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest with you, I sent you some pictures of some kangaroos. I thought I would see some blooms of fur or something else, but then when you look at it and then perhaps figure out how large it is, its mass is huge. Yeah. So it's got all this radiant heat coming out of it, whereas myself, Gary, Dean in particular, are much smaller, and it's not penetrating through our shirts in an evenness or a regularity. And on the last trip we did, we had young Jacob with us, and he's right into doing recreation. So he does World War I recreation. So he brought a great coat, which was used in the trenches. Now he wore that, and it just shielded the heat completely from it. So I would assume that the reason that it seems so uniform, although there's some yellowing there, is that it is so massive. It's just, 3 or 4 times the body weight of ours.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that of course, whenever I've heard from witnesses, whether personally or just hearing their encounters, when they do really get a good sight of the Bigfoot or Yowies or whatever, it seems that other than on their head, the hair seems to be actually kind of sparse on like the chest and the upper arms and stuff. Like it's not like a thick coat. It doesn't seem to be.
Yeah, there are varying descriptions.
Very much the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's just, what occurs to me. I think I understand what the person means now a little more. And just looking at the image that I have up on the screen, of course, you can see how the different clothes really affect the amount of heat that is being perceived by the cameras. So, that's very powerful, I think, as well. And the fact that Yowies don't wear clothes definitely plays into that.
That it does.
Yeah, my brother, bless him, who's been out, he's humoured his older brother on a couple of these expeditions. Said, some people like to get out there in the bush and experience each other. And I'm going, you would not be taking your clothes off in the bush for anything out there.
As you said, why would you walk kilometres into the middle of the bush and then set up your little rendezvous beside the only people in the middle of the bush? Doesn't make any sense.
Although we did have that great...
Have you done that?
Yeah, I've done that. No. Guilty as charged. No. We went out on, I think it was our third trip, and we were expecting no one to be there. Absolutely no one to be there. Dean and I had gone one way, and Gary and Shannon had gone another way, and then we saw these lights. Dean and I saw these little lights coming up. Well, what the hell? And we went, oh, no, the worst. These are Yowie hunters. We don't want to be with them. And so Dean, who is a good hide-and-seeker, he jumped off into the bushes and curled up in a little ball out of either design or fright. I was bumping around like a pinball off trees. I was strangling myself on vines. And then I just got these two little lights in my face. And I heard, oh, hello. And it was two German backpackers hiking poles, middle of the night, and they come across me with no light, right in the middle of the track. I'm trying not to be creepy, and I am creepy. I am well creepy. And the poor girl says to me, oh, are you alone? And I said, yes. I completely lied. She could tell I lied. And then the next question was, do you have a light? And I went, yes. I wasn't using a light. Then she said, quite tellingly, are you okay? And I said, yes. Clearly not an okay situation. And she sidled past me. And that's when the male companion spoke, and they hightailed it out. And then he said, oh, good luck to you then.
Best story yet.
Cade is in the chat as mentioned, and he's wondering how you like doing the second best interview on his show compared to this one. This one is obviously the best one.
I'll tell you what, the only reason I'm wearing this singlet is because every time we do something, he complains that I'm not wearing this bloody singlet. And I knew he'd be watching today. That's why I put the bloody singlet on.
All right. I guess they liked it okay, Cade, but quit your whining.
Yeah. I told him this is the only interview that matters, so, Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, let's see. We've had Wes and Cade and Dean's here.
Yeah.
Sarah's here.
Got a great coverage here.
We're covering all the bases.
Oh, Gary, Cade's wondering about the undies he sent you.
Sorry?
Cade's wondering about the undies he sent you.
Wow.
Are you wearing those?
I slept with them on my head last night.
Okay.
Wow.
That might have been an overshare.
Wow. It's the wrong bell end, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to go upstairs and get my Sasquatch Chronicles shirt and put that on too. Make Wes happy.
Are you getting some kind of kickback from these guys?
Yeah, are they?
What's going on?
Yeah. I get 3 months worth of free pancakes.
All right. Cool.
Outstanding.
That's awesome.
Outstanding. Well, gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time. How can people stay in touch with what you guys are doing and, of course, AYR as well?
They can go to yowiehunters.com or Australian Yowie Research Official on Facebook. Please check it out, the website or Facebook. Dean has done a super amazing job along with the help of Sarah. All the information that you could hope to find about Yowies is on that website. Otherwise, visit us on Facebook at Australian Yowie Research Official.
Yeah, the other thing you can also do yourself is, if you are interested, is start helping by going out and conducting investigations. The more people that are out there, the more that they can help gather a growing body of evidence to put forward, a reasonable case that these creatures exist without you having to see one.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. And
don't forget, we live in the real world. All those blind people, they don't live in the real world.
We got another question from Ken, who's Australian as well. And he's wondering, have these guys ever seen signs of the thylacines? Now, we've heard Dean's story, of course, but have you guys ever seen anything out there that you think might have been a possible thylacine?
Personally, no. They're all in the southern states.
In the southern states? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Buck? No.
I found a skull once which set the local chapter on fire, and I picked it up and I put it on a rock. I took a photo of it. People thought it might have been a thylacine, but in the end it was correctly identified as a tiger quoll. That was significant because they had not been seen in that area for maybe 100 years. So it was promising that an endangered species was back in that area.
Wow. Oh, very cool. Yeah. Okay. Have you guys ever encountered any other cryptids?
Just the Germans.
Just the Germans. I don't think that qualifies as cryptid, but for the sake of our listeners, we love Germans as well.
Yes.
The views of our guests do not necessarily reflect those of the portal. All right. Well, I guess that's going to about wrap it up for us. Don, anything in closing?
No, I just want to say thank you to both Buck and Gary. It's nice to have you on the show. Gary, you've been around for a while, and Buck, we hope you're going to join us every now and then, like, those other people do. And just, getting that great evidence, the great pictures, whether it be thermal or whatnot, is just absolutely incredible. And real quick, I wanted to say something about something Gary said a while ago about how it's kind of cathartic for these older people that have these experiences to be able to come forward now and have that cathartic moment where they realize that they're not crazy. Other people have had these experiences, and I think that's one of the best things that we can take away with this. We've talked to lots of people who have like PTSD over this whole thing, and being able to bring them back in and get their stories out there, that's incredible too. So just those ideas. Thank you, fellas, and there you go.
Thank you.
And also a special thank you to Dean Harrison for letting us use those images, letting us talk to these guys and have them on the show. We really appreciate that. It's always a pleasure. Of course, we're big supporters of AYR and of all of you guys that are out there doing the work. So thank you so much for being a part of our journey. Gary and Buck, hang around for a couple minutes. I'm just going to close out the show, and we'll chat with you in a sec. But, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the journey for Don and myself. So thank you so much for joining us and being a part of our journey. All 82 of you that are out there in the audience land. Hope you'll spread the word about the Paranormal Portal and keep in touch. If you have anything paranormal of your very own. Oh, thank you, Doozy. Doozy says, great interview, guys. please let us know. Reach out to paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. But that's going to wrap it up for us. We love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. See, oh, thank you, Heavy Water. Awesome. Very cool. Nice. All right, we love you guys. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.